The Color of Her Eyes by Mary Beth Farrell, June 2020. The eye is the jewel of the body. Henry David Thoreau. Usually it was in her eyes. Sometimes when you talked to her, you could tell that she was listening to you, but not hearing you. We all claim to know where she went in those times when her eyes slightly changed from a piercing blue to an aqua energy of color. We thought she was thinking of her home. Where that was, we weren't sure. But there was something about those eyes and the way they could hold you and then leave you standing there as if you were utterly alone. Hannah always loved that her name was a palindrome. Same going forward, same going backward. It made sense to her that her identity was so balanced with itself. She liked the tidiness of it, and she liked that it was the same all the time. It was the same all the time, no matter where she was, no matter where she went. That was important because she never knew when she would have to open another side of herself to do her given work. She never knew when she had to go. It helped her when the responsibility became so in the center. She was strong, tall, good shoulders, bold arms and legs. And her laugh? Oh, her laugh was like musical notes gracefully and haltingly gliding down the scale of a wave. Her hair moved down the back in a sort of way. That hair, there were good days and bad days for it. Sometimes it just did its thing. Long, wavily driven by the humidity of the day, reflecting prior impulses to color it various shades of blonde and brown, and streaks of highlights in it. Those highlights looked like lightning was trapped in there. We always heard that she was a mermaid, but we never knew for sure. Her eyes, though, when they did their thing, were the color of the aqua-tinged sea. Hannah was striking in a way that said strength. Her arms, tattooed with a mixture of whatever had mattered in that moment of inking, made people think that she was a being from another world. Green, black, red, yellow, blue, they covered her arms with a panoply of shaded colors. Her arms seemed to be representing something, strong, moving, open. We just weren't sure what it was. We should have asked. She probably wouldn't have answered. She probably would have hugged us. Her eyes would have smiled in a Hannah-like way, kind of sadly twinkling. She wore a uniform every day. That was what you would expect from someone who works at a retail giant. Red shirt always and khaki pants. In a dulled pink if the bosses weren't around. A symbol of a bullseye on her name tag made the outfit complete. A retail warrior, we called her. Her shoes were sort of fancy. Adidas sneakers that did their moving all around the store. Checking on people, checking on things, lots of people. These shoes meant for the journey moved her to counting countless items and ordering and They moved her to unloading the big truck at 4 a.m. and held her up while she smiled down on customers at the customer service desk, at angry guests who were trying to get refunds for stuff that they really didn't buy. Scammers they were. Damned liars. All good. They were just limited people who really had a very limited sense of what self-worth feels like. Corporate policy says that the guest is always right. That's the corporate know-nothing's thought. Hannah's smile sometimes didn't match her eyes. That's when things happened. Fast. Her clothes didn't change. Red shirt forever. Her shoes stayed in place. She didn't sprout feathers from her back, and her fingernails stayed the same length as they did every morning when she woke up. No cape, no tight-fitting bodice, no plunging neckline, no heavily painted eyeshadow. Haphazard hair stayed the same. Nothing covered that hair in those moments. It was the energy in her eyes that rocked the building, and each person's soul knew it without even looking at her. Fierce for justice and loyalty, her eyes read each indignity, each abuse, each pain in her workers' eyes, and things weren't the same for that retail store. Her tattoos blazed color to match the change. They moved like whirling hurricane winds and swirling currents of her ocean's deepest anger. Orange turned into quick chattering lightning, blue storm clouds rushing the shoreline. Green swirled into torrents of sheer wind spray as she confronted the giant of greed and injustice. The black lines that encircled those images on her arms held firm, keeping the colorful mass of movement in place for her ideals of justice and mercy. The tattooed woman on her arm shook with energy. No words, just vibrant and intoxicating color. She became a gust of diversified color in her anger at the unjust corporation. We waited in awestruck silence. It started soon enough. Things broke. Items were lost. Trucks lost their goods. Food spoiled. Everyone said it was bad luck, and the enemy never knew what hit it. Spreadsheets wouldn't balance. Forecasts were upside down. The machine sputtered in its enormous greedy march. Hannah's eyes made that clear to us. They would flash, like that sunset does, and then we would wait. It wasn't immediate, her retribution, but we knew it would come soon. The day we remember Hannah in her angry glory was when a refrigerator truck pulled into the bay with groceries for our store. Somehow, in the machinations of the humans who worked that day, the truck was neglected on the dock, stayed in the heat too long, and the temperature inside dropped. It only dropped a couple of degrees, but it was enough for the powers that be to throw the whole stuff in the trash. A whole freight. Her anger was righteous. There were hundreds of hungry people in our town who could have used that food. It had not spoiled. It wasn't unsafe to eat. It was the retail giant and the rules about food that keep them from being sued by someone who randomly got sick and cast it about for a good way to get easy money ruled that decision. At least that's how we felt that day. We know how Hannah felt, eyes blazing, brilliant colors writhing on her arms. She represented rightness and fairness and evenness. Remember that palindrome name? Because of that liquid fire in her eyes, we were able to know that the giant corporate machine was not a good fit for us, and that if we opened our own lively eyes, we would be different. We would not be accomplices in that giant surge for things and more things. We wouldn't stand up for greed and grab. We were bigger than that. We wanted to be bigger. We have always heard of that trite cliche that is used over and over, the one that says the eyes are the window to the soul. We always talk about that in literature and stuff like that, but Hannah's eyes were different, present and distant all together at once, blue to aqua energy in a second. They say looks can kill, and they also say the eye is the jewel of the body. Maybe her tattoos shared these jewel sentiments in some ancient Sanskrit kind of way. Maybe the secret was in there somewhere in that color arc of mystery that lay on her arms. Maybe the tattoos were just about love and the arms that could love. Maybe it was pretty simple. Maybe the woman carved there in solid and sustaining ink was really who she was. Proud, valiant, and honest. A woman who could live between the sea and the land in a space that we could never see, but she could. We know she lived outside the borders of our city, but we could never find her house, or probably cottage. She could never be traced, and we tried because we wanted to thank her. Not many people had done kind things for us ever. Her mystery made her even more powerful. Someone remarked about how she always stayed out of the way. We thought it best to just be present when she moved around us. She was with us for a while, aqua, dancing on water. Then she was gone. In a flash of a jeweled sunset, like the moment when the sea turns a different color and charges that flash of green right before it welcomes the night, she was gone. That's where she lived, in that moment now in our memories. We sort of didn't want to know that place between us and her magic. It would have changed her, and it would have weakened us to know. Hannah did change us, and we know our lives make sense now because of her. A superwoman in a southern low-country town. Our town was trying to be bigger than it could be and harder than it needed to be. Fiercely judgmental, harshly negative, we were fools in our fruitlessness, superiority, privilege, and self-importance. We compromised the truest values of traditions across humanity and time. We lost ourselves in the morass of self-focus and greed. We became aggressive. We became hurtful. We were compromising our blessed gift of humanity in the face of the enemy. Consumerism. We joined ranks with him. Hannah saw us, those eyes. She wanted us to be better. There were other places where we could just be good folks, working for right cause, creating careers that really mattered. Now that she is gone, we don't know where she went. We have come to know that Hannah came from the water, beneath the dancing sunlight edge, beneath the ocean-crested color of changing. The vast ocean and her perpetual relationship with the moodiness of the moon was Hannah's home. Deeper than deep, her home was with the Ancient of Days. Her life began, as all of ours do, in the salty water of time. Her parents were ordinary. They had everything they needed in the waterland to be who they needed to be. Simple and elegant people, they loved Hannah with ferocity, and they taught her about the simple blessing of justice, of how to treat people and things with kindness, of how to swim upstream if need be, and to acknowledge other different kinds of beings on the shore. She learned about the challenge of a hurricane's lashings, and she saw the destruction on the land. Her heart wept for the foolish people who built their homes in the universe of hers. She understood them, though, and desired to help them be safe and to live well. Her parents' pleas and cries for her to stay with them wrecked her heart, but Hannah knew that her mission was to bring humanity back to the humans. She started her mission against the capitalistic corporate giant. She learned the simplest truths, and she taught them to us. Those sayings that should be tattooed on all of us. The one that says, be kind one to another, forgive each other, be kind. Great philosophers and spiritual guides across the experience of time have known this to be true too. Maybe it's just not that hard to understand. Maybe we should get our tattoos that say, be kind one to another. We know there are miracles in our lives. We have seen them coming and we've seen them going. We see them going forward, we see them going back. Hannah liked the tidiness of her name, a balance between the land and the sea, from the salty water of time.